This week on Art on the Air, our whole show features American roots singer-songwriter Leah Song, a multi-instrumental musician, storyteller, poet, and artist, who along with her younger sister Chloe Smith fronts their band Rising Appalachia. Our spotlight is on Mark Edward Wilows' children's book Silas and Sophie, now getting ready to be released as an animated cartoon.
Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. You're in the know with Esther and Larry. Art on the air today. Stay in the know with Larry and Esther. Art on the air our way. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart.
Welcome. You're listening to Art on the Air on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, WVLP 103.1 FM, our weekly program covering the arts and arts events throughout Northwest Indiana and beyond. I'm Larry Breckner of New Perspectives Photography, right alongside here with Esther Golden of The Nest in Michigan City.
Aloha, everyone.
We're your hosts for Art on the Air. Art on the Air is supported by an Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project Grant, South Shore Arts, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Art on the Air is heard every Sunday at 7 p.m. on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, also streaming live at lakeshorepublicmedia.org, and is available on Lakeshore Public Media's website as a podcast. Also heard on Friday at 11 a.m. and Monday at 5 p.m. on WVLP 103.1 FM, streaming live at wvlp.org, and Tuesdays at 4 p.m. on WDSO 88.3 FM. Our Spotlight interviews are also heard Wednesdays on Lakeshore Public Media. Information about Art on the Air is available at our website, breck.com/AOTA. That includes a complete show archive, spotlight interviews, plus our show is available on multiple podcast platforms, including NPR One. Please like us on Facebook, Art on the Air, WVLP, for information about upcoming shows and interviews. I'd like to welcome to Art on the Air Spotlight, who's been with us before, and we've talked about him in depth. Now he's got a special project that's coming up, a book that he's come out with. It's actually been published before, but it's being re-released, and now there's some additional things he's going to talk about. Please welcome Mark Edward Wilows to Art on the Air Spotlight. Mark, welcome back.
Hi, Larry.
Hi, Mark.
Thank you for having me. Hi, Esther.
Well, we know you have this project, and you have actually, it was released one time again, but it's being re-released, but also there's some special things coming. So tell us a little bit about your book that you have out. It's a children's book.
It is a children's book, and it is called Silas and Sophie. And the premise of the book is the story is about a little country boy with a love for his dog. And it goes through trials and tribulations, and it is really a very heartwarming story. And I wrote the book 3 years ago, and it did go through some changes. I'm actually the sole author now of the book. And I've always, as a kid, like you, Larry, we all grew up with animation, the Flintstones, all of that stuff. And I'm like, you know what? There's something I need to do with this book. So I approached a production company in Los Angeles, and they read the book, called me back like within a day, which is kind of very rare. And they're like, we love this. We would like to turn it into a cartoon. And we have not yet decided, are we talking weekly cartoon, daily cartoon, what? And of course, if it will go to a cartoon, the story will expand a little beyond the book, obviously. But it was just something that I have done. And one of the reasons that I wrote the book, and I believe I told you this last time, I really want to bring literacy back to children. Children today do not know what books are because everything is in the palm of the hand, buttons hitting. And, just like the old saying goes, reading is fundamental. It is. I mean, not only is it teaching them, they see words, they see spelling, they see punctuation, they see all of that. And that is something today children see very little of.
So, Mark, are the names significant to you, Silas and Sophie?
You know what? No. They are character names, although I will say the dog Sophie kind of has been named after Oprah Winfrey's dog because, as you remember, she had a brown dog called Sophie. And that is where I kind of came up with Sophie. And Silas, we just wanted a country name of a boy. And for some reason, I'm thinking of farms in a silo. That's how it started. I'm like, silo. Silas. And that is how it really came up.
So are you thinking, have you started book 2? I think we talked about book 2 the last time,
Yes,
like
I
a
have.
Halloween. I think it was a
It is
Halloween
a
base.
Halloween book. And as everyone knows, if you follow me on Facebook, I have a very famous cat, Blake, whom I love to pieces. And anyway, the book is going to be about him. He will be the star. And the premise of that book is going to be a solid black cat, which he is. And the solid black cat turns into an orange cat on Halloween and spreads magic across the land. And at midnight, he turns back to himself. And the last sentence in the book is, well, after all, it's Halloween night. So
So the book is available right now. So tell us about some of the availability and some of the places
yes,
it is.
the book is available right now as we speak at barnesandnoble.com. Do Silas and Sophie, my name, Mark Edward Wilows, and it will pop up. Also, in the next coming days, it will be available on Amazon. And we are also going to be putting it on Kindle. So that is all of the stuff that is coming up. But right now, if you go to barnesandnoble.com, the book is there.
And you also talked about Macy's and make a book signing somewhere down the road.
Yes, the book is going to be in some national stores. We have been talking to Macy's. They've seemed very receptive. They love it. And to my surprise, they have a bookstore called Barbara's Bookstores in Macy's. And I was amazed at the children's book. It's 85% children's books in that store. So I'm like, this book is perfect. And that's how it began.
So what other projects you are working on? Is there anything coming down the road? I know you're always busy doing things or networking with people.
I have a podcast, which is Gab & Cabin. That's a celebrity podcast. I do an entertainment segment in Orlando, Florida. I'm on a local newscast out there, and they are trying to push to get that to go national now. So we're going to see how all of that works. And also on the radio local here, I probably, without mentioning the station, I could be a competitor. I do that once a week. Could I mention the station?
Oh, sure, by all means, yeah.
Z107.1 out of Valparaiso. I'm on there every Friday at 10:10 in the morning and 2:10 in the afternoon. And I just do a Hollywood segment. And it's been kind of sad because lately I keep opening up with all these actors passing away. It seems like that's all it's been. But it is a fun segment, and I enjoy doing it.
Right. And that's once a week?
Once a week, every Friday.
Okay. Any other like projects with television, film, anything like that?
Yeah, I'm trying to get together a local show that I would like to do. And I feel the need for that in the area, even though you do a great job with your show, but local is so important. And that is something that I am currently working on. And as I tell everyone, and I'm sure as you know, there's always oars in the fire. It just has to be that way in this business, especially if you want to survive with a can of chicken soup. You have to have something in the fire.
And you've been doing some speaking engagements. Tell us briefly about those.
Yes, I will be speaking actually at Calumet College of St. Joseph. It is going to be on whatever the Wednesday is, November 7, 8, somewhere in that area. I will be speaking, and Mr. Casello, who's one of the deans, has invited me down there. So I will be talking to the media students, and I love doing that because I've been doing this so long. I just love to bring my knowledge to the classroom and tell children and give them the pros and cons of the business.
Well, we're just about ready to wrap up. I'm going to give you a chance to also tell where the book available is and how people can find you online.
Well, you can find me online. I'm big on Facebook. Mark Edward Wilows. Point out Wilows has one L, Wilows. And the book is at barnesandnoble.com. You could type in Silas and Sophie, Mark Edward Wilows, and it will pop up. And like I said, it's coming soon on Amazon.
We appreciate you coming on Art in the Air Spotlight. Mark Edward Wilows, Silas and Sophie, and is available at all those places that you said. Mark, thank you so much for coming on Art in the Air Spotlight.
Thank you, Mark.
Art on the Air Spotlight and the complete one-hour program on Lakeshore Public Media is brought to you by Macaulay Real Estate in Valparaiso, Olga Patrician, Senior Broker. And as a reminder, if you'd like to have your event on Art on the Air Spotlight or have a longer feature interview, email us at AOTA@brech.com. That's AOTA@brech.com. Art on the Air is supported by an Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project Grant, South Shore Arts, and the National Endowment for the Arts. You're listening to Art on the Air on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, on WVLP, 103.1 FM,
uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again.
We are pleased to welcome Leah Song to Art on the Air. Leah is an American singer-songwriter, multi-instrumental musician, storyteller, poet, artist, and activist known for her role as one of the two front sisters of Rising Appalachia. With her sister Chloe Smith, they incorporate sultry vocals, rhythm, banjo, guitar, ballads, dance, spoken word, and storytelling into their work. Her music is based in the traditions of Southern soul and international roots music. With her sister, they are also part of the beautiful Starling Arrow. Thank you very much for joining us on Art on the Air. Aloha and welcome, Leah. It's so nice to have you here.
Yay. Thanks so much for having me as a spokesperson for us, all of us. That I
for lots of us's.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Well, we appreciate you coming on the show. And our audience always wants to know a lot about our guests. I always like to talk about their origin story. And I like to tee it up by saying how you got from where you were to where you are now. So tell us about yourself.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite piece of our story, if I were allowed to say such a thing. My sister and I grew up in a beautiful, very quirky working class neighborhood in downtown Atlanta, Georgia. And we had a pretty unusual upbringing. We have a folk sculptor of a father and a wonderfully obsessed fiddling mother. And both of their artistries were their passion and not their jobs. They worked hard to hold the household together in fairly menial day labor. I think they would both say that, but there was just a ton of art in our home and a ton of music in our home. And we also grew up in downtown Atlanta. We were children of the public school system. So there was this fantastic, very vibrant neo-soul and underground hip hop community that was growing up and sprouting around us as young people in our school and in our peers and in our community. And so we had just all of this access to Southern front porch culture, of which I consider all of these things to be part of the front porch cultures. And that was just normal for us. We didn't know that was unusual. We didn't know it was unusual to be straddling the rural and the urban Southern traditions. We didn't know that much art was unusual. Our parents had a contra dance band, which we were just mortified and embarrassed by for a while, and then realized that was pretty fantastic. And so it was in our blood and in our bones in a lot of ways. And the long winding story would take some hours to tell, but the cliff notes are that we left home, both of us in our own timing as young adults, as young women, and began traveling abroad and studying and learning about the wider world as just eager and hungry young women from the South, and realized in those journeys that we actually came from a very deep and rooted tradition. And it was in that era of our early 20s that both my sister and I started turning back and tilting back towards a lot of the traditions we were raised in, and started collecting songs and beginning to understand our role as performers, musicians, storytellers. Like you said, there's a lot of things we like to incorporate into our show. And it was a slow, and it still feels kind of like a slow and humble journey. We jump in to invitation-based gigs, and we still do as much studying as we can around all of that. But it's taken us into a hefty many-year career now, trying to make sense out of our traditions and also writing and creating new traditions of music that feel like they matter for us.
You've described a very vibrant household. Can you describe, I'm interested in two things. Like, one, what is your first clear sort of baby memory of music and how it was incorporated? Like, do you have a favorite baby memory that sticks with you? And can you describe what a day in the life of this artistic family was like for you?
Yeah. I have the best early, it's not my memory, but it's the first memory that my parents tell me it was my first word, and they would listen to they had a fabulous vinyl collection that I'm slowly inheriting. And apparently my first word after mama and daddy, they walked in the room and I was shaking the crib, and my first word was the Duke, for Duke Ellington. Because Ellington records were the favorite in our household. So the Duke, that's like, I don't quite have that memory, but I love the notion that may have been a bit foreshadowing of our world.
That's so beautiful.
I know, Duke Ellington. I mean, my train car with honor, and we're a day in the life. Is that what you said? A day.
Yeah. With two artistic parents, I'm wondering what a typical day is like.
I mean, our childhood was really, we lived right in a very functional working class neighborhood. Our father would often walk us to school in the morning. We could walk to the little public elementary school by our house. We were big advocates of public school, public radio, the public TV stations. We had a tiny little television in our home, and we would only watch the nature channels. Go get TGIF. Thank goodness it's Friday. We would get a root beer float on a Friday. And, most of our activities were within walking distance of our home. So we would spend time at school and spend time in various after-school events, and then come back. And we had a very attentive family. There was a lot of conversation at the table, a lot of creative nudging. At one point, my father taped brown paper all around the child height walls of the house and handed us crayons and let us go to town on what we thought was a mural project. Walls. We didn't have a lot of financial. We had financial stability, but not a lot of excess in any way. And so most of our activities had to do with making things out of whatever we could find, and that felt like a wonderful thing to be taught how to do as kids. We didn't know any different.
So is there more siblings other than you and Chloe? And were you and Chloe close growing up? Because in all the media and video, you two seem extraordinarily close.
Yeah,
now.
There were no other siblings. We laugh about what our family band would be like if there were a few more of us. And we are extraordinarily close. When I get off this call and interview with you all, I will be going straight to her home.
Oh, baby time.
Yeah, a little baby time. And we have stayed close. I mean, we had a few years of probably childhood angst where we were trying to figure out our places, but we don't have a real competitive nature. We're both tremendously different, and I think we lean on each other's strengths and kind of get out of each other's way often. And so we're really, I think, quite lucky to have, just by the luck of the draw, been dear friends. And a lot of siblings, I think, can struggle with competition, and not just because of our differences. We didn't compete about much. We didn't want the same things, so we could just kind of fan each other's flames in a way.
How'd you gain all the mastery of the instruments that you have? I mean, that was you guys play such a wide variety of instruments. What did you first start out on, and then how did you expand from that?
Yeah, I would say that our band members have immense mastery on their instruments. And I would say Chloe and I have mastery as song crafters. And our instruments are our secondary. They're secondary to our voices. We did grow up with a lot of singing in the house. We both grew up with a little bit of resistant classical piano that we didn't love, but we did. And we started picking up more of the fiddle and banjo, bowron and guitar, a lot more of the traditional instruments, again, in our 20s. And we still have a long way to go. We study from our mother is one of our favorite teachers. She can play circles around us 10 hours a day. And
wow.
Yeah, she's the one. And we took classes at a real amazing Southern folk school called the Swannanoa Gathering, that anyone that is looking into learning traditional instruments, it's kind of like a fiddle camp, summer camp for adults, and we could not praise it more highly. It's a wonderful place to learn traditional folk music.
So do both you and Chloe write music, and do you have rituals for like your songwriting? Does it, like sometimes, and I'm curious about, do you hear the lyrics and the music together? How does it all get pulled together? Because for me, I can write something and 2 years ago, and then what I'm writing now, it belongs there. So I don't know what but then sometimes like I'll do 3 pages it just pours out. And there it is.
It's true. I definitely, I feel like there's 2 kinds of creators. There's the kind that just go to the desk every day and work on their craft and fine tune it. And then there are those of us that just get lightning bolt moments and it's inconsistent. And I actually think Chloe and I am the lightning bolt one. I wait until the moment, and the moment might strike on a Thursday on an airplane. It may not come for months. And Chloe tends to be really prolific at harnessing on a consistent basis. We call her the faucet, and she's really able to tend to the songwriting craft with amazing discipline and regularity, and makes beautiful music. So we co-write some things. Sometimes one of us will bring something to the table pretty completed, and there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to what we get our hands on. It tends to be circumstantial, album by album.
Well, I think our audience might want to hear a sample of your music, Stand Like an Oak, and set that up for us. Tell us a little bit about the origin of that and everything, and we'll take a listen to it.
Well, sure. That's a great example of one that Chloe just brought to the table, nearly complete, right before the pandemic had struck. We didn't really know what was coming, and she said, just hop into the studio real quick with me, and I'd like to track this. And I came up with a second harmony and a banjo part for it, and we just tracked it pretty quickly, and it ended up being quite meaningful for us as the world unraveled for those years, because it has a lot to do with finding sturdiness in your roots in a way, and also the oaks have interlocking roots. Yeah, so they can hold so much more because they lean on each other, and it's one that's meant a lot to us.
Well, let's take a listen to it. Stand Like an Oak, and that's Leah Song along with Chloe.
Stand like an oak, an aspen, an alder. It's in you, don't falter. And if so, then I got you. Fake it, walk taller. Anything that makes you feel smaller, leave them by the angels of the water. Push 'em up, push 'em up. Put away your cares. Fold them, fold them. Fold up your fears. Push 'em up, push 'em up. Put away your cares. Fold them, fold them. Fold up your fears. You said come to this river. Give me your arms. Lean back. There's nothing to be alarmed of. He said the more I know, the more I dig, and the more I return to myself around every bend. Push 'em up, push 'em up. Put away your cares. Fold them, fold them. Fold up your fears. Push 'em up, push 'em up.
And that was Standing Like an Oak with our guest today, Leah Song. That was really beautiful.
Yeah, I love the Leave It by the Angels of the Water. So lovely.
Yeah, that felt like an important mantra for some years there, if not still.
You know, you briefly touched on COVID. And, you know, over the years that's happened, the pandemic, how it's influenced you and some artists and musicians negatively and some positively. So how did COVID impact you, both personally and musically?
Yeah, I think that's really true, both negatively and positively. Gosh, I mean, I think for our band, and certainly for me personally, it after the initial sort of startling of panic that struck, like what in the world is actually going on here? After that sort of settled and I realized most of my people were okay, my family was safe, people were in, you know, good health, then it became this sense of, wow, I don't think I have stayed still like that since I became an adult. And I just had a very simple life, a very simple routine. I had a lot of time to be in the world of writing and songwriting and art making and meditating, and there was nowhere to go, you know, and I think as touring musicians, once you swung out of just the adrenal fatigue of go, 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 there was this sense for almost all of us of just like, whoa. And that wasn't it wasn't uncomplicated. It's still, we lost our work entirely. And that meant that everyone had to lean into all kinds of other ways to make ends meet. But I think just in the sense of our levels of exhaustion, you know, we all got to understand how exhausting tour is. And and I don't think we had time to even notice that for the 10 years prior. So
is that when you came up with Catalyst? Would that give you the time to think about Catalyst, or?
No, Catalyst has been a dream forever. You know,
I tried to get to it. It was just, it sounded so beautiful.
Catalyst was always been this notion that eventually we would try and curate something that came our way. But it is the origin of the most recent studio album, which is called The Lost Mystique of Being in the Know. And that title was one that we had chewed on for a while, and then it felt all of a sudden radically relevant to the body of work. And the whole band, there's 5 of us that have been touring together for nearly 10 years, every one of us. So it's a bit of a marriage. And we all got together and did an entire body of work that was all improvisational. And it just had this sense of this whole spirit of we don't know. None of us know anything anymore. We don't know what's going on. We don't know how to move into the future. We don't know how to plan. And once I think we released that, all of a sudden there became a sense of real deep power to not knowing and just sitting with that.
You're listening to Art on the Air with our guest today, singer-songwriter Leah Song, on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, and on WVLP, 103.1 FM. You know, we're going to listen to another song, Harmonize. Tell us a little bit about that, the background of that song, and we'll take a listen to that.
Harmonize is just a good old-fashioned love song. And I also think we have such a pulse in wanting to tell stories and claim tradition, and understand the impact of music. And sometimes some of the most beautiful heart tuggers are just the story of the heart, the story of love. And so it is simply that. It is simply a song about, you know, how it feels to be beloved or to be loving. And there's a line in it that I really like, which is, I'm awake for you. And some people think that that's, I'm gonna wait for you. either one would work, but I am awake for you in the sense like I'm present for you. I'm awake. I'm paying attention. And that feels like such a subtle request that so many of us make to our beloveds, just to be present.
Was this a co-writing, or was this yours or Chloe's?
This was a co-writing, but Chloe is our faucet. She brought a lot of this to the table. You know?
Well, let's take a listen to it. Harmonize, Rising Appalachia.
Tell me what makes you weary. Tell me what lights up your eyes. I'll meet you there in the middle. We'll lay down and harmonize. Tell me what makes you peaceful. Tell me what you fantasize. I'm taking notes in the moonlight. We'll lay down and harmonize. We'll lay down and harmonize. I'm awake for you. I'm awake for you. I'm awake for you. I'm awake for you. Tell me what keeps you honest. Tell me what keeps you inspired. I'll always come in the morning. We'll lay down and harmonize. Tell me what moves you ready. Tell me what moves your insides. I'll bring the soul, bring the steady. We'll lay down and harmonize. We'll lay down and harmonize.
that was Harmonize. Leah, beautiful. That's what a great collaboration that is.
I know. The line that stuck out for me, though, was like, I'm taking notes in the moonlight. Just the image of that is just so beautiful.
Right? I mean, if that isn't an ancient love story that has to have happened to everyone from every ancestry all around the world, you know?
You're listening to Art on the Air with our guest today, singer-songwriter Leah Song, on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, and on WVLP, 103.1 FM. So you talk about touring. I know touring can be rough, but tell us about tell us a little bit about the going on the road, taking the whole thing on the road, and some of the challenges it is, and of course some of the positives.
You know, it's so interesting because it's rough and it's also wonderful. I mean, it is the great conundrum. It's got the highest highs. You are in a beautiful place. You're surrounded by people singing with you. You know, you're in an area you've never been. There's a spirit of novelty to it that's really funny. My mom in the guest room here, which is where I'm calling you from, and she left her devices and they're talking to me and I don't know how to deal with that. So, we're all Luddites in this house. Fix that, I'll go grab it. But, I'll just keep going in the meantime.
I know, I'm still very analog with everything as well.
No, I don't even know where it's coming from. But yeah, I was saying, like, it has this really wonderful high where you're in novelty, you're in travel, but you're also traveling in a way where you're offering something. So you're not a tourist, you're part of a creative culture. And then it has this bizarre low side where it's somebody's birthday and you're in a gas station eating a Subway sandwich at best, or it's pouring down raining and you're homesick and you're nowhere near home. You just have to kind of rally and try and get the energy, fake it till you make it, in a way to bring something to a community of people that wants you to be the catharsis for the night. So
yeah, it's that underlying exhaustion. I mean, as wonderful it is, there's like always a running exhaustion that's right underneath the surface.
Yeah.
And yet you gain energy from that. You can pull energy from that whole, you're exhausted, but like in live theater.
Strange dynamic.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Strange dynamic, yeah.
Do you have any favorite venues that you play at, or your favorite types of venues?
Well, we've done a couple of sailboat tours, and I have to say it's the greatest touring ever. You go 6 miles an hour, you play a show a night in the middle of the sea, and that's an unusual venue for sure, but that's been our favorite. We've had a lot of chances to play in some pretty unusual places, and I often think the venues that are the least likely to be a concert venue sometimes are the most fun for us. Although we have some favorite venues too. We love old theaters. We have a big West Coast tour coming up, the biggest one since before the pandemic, and we're going to play it at the Neptune Theater in Seattle. That's a very big favorite of ours. And
any old churches?
Old church. That's usually a little more in Europe. When we tour in Europe, we get to spend a lot of time turning old churches into
acoustic wonders.
Yes, and they're amazing. But it's all, and sometimes we get surprised. Sometimes one that we never thought we would like just happens to have the spirit that night.
So when you're in Europe, how is your music received? Is that kind of Americana roots sound, or they embrace that?
Yeah, we have a fabulous time in Europe. We don't tour there that often, but we started touring there before we toured in the U.S., and we toured with our instruments on our backs and took trains and busked and street carnivals and all sorts of things. And, it feels still very alive, the kind of street music traditions. They're much more embraced and
very welcomed.
It's very welcome.
Mm-hmm.
We are just hungry for cultural exchange. So I think the community of international touring is one that we'll just always be indebted to.
I would like to just like step back into Catalyst for a moment. Are you planning on doing another one? And what were some of the things that you learned
Yeah, that
doing
my
it?
Catalyst flyer is still right in
I
front of
know
me in
it's
my
so
office.
beautiful. I mean,
Um,
it was curated so lovely. I mean,
oh,
the activities and the music and the pace, it just looked
thank you.
fabulous.
We are going to do another Catalyst, and it was a huge undertaking, and it was a 2-day kind of multifaceted event. We wanted it to be one part music festival, but also one part, workshop and also interactive hands-on workshops. And there's not a lot of, and we also wanted it to be in an urban space so that it had to do with reclamation of space. So it was in an old junkyard turned into a music venue. And all of those pieces of the vision were an important part of it, but they don't always yield to the simplest thing. And we would probably have a much easier time just making a music festival for 2 days in a big campground of some sort. But we really wanted all these other pieces. And it was an enormous amount of work, but it also was a success. And we were able to bring friends and mentors and performers and teachers from all these different walks of life. And when it all came together, it just felt like, wow, we really did it. We really brought some of the big heavy hitters that have influenced us from around the world to one central place and made an offering of it. So it was a massive undertaking, and we're going to do it one more year. And then we're going to decide after the second one if we're going to do it ever again or not.
Yeah, it would seem like the enriching workshops that you had would really lead to wonderful memories and friendships,
Yeah,
to interact on that level. I
yeah,
thought it was a brilliant combination.
yeah. It felt, and it in the behind the scenes there was no drama, and that was like, okay, there's some few things that could get fine tuned. There's some things we could fix, but it really worked, and that felt wonderful. To just see it, our role as producer come together.
You're listening to Art on the Air with our guest today, singer-songwriter Leah Song, on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, and on WVLP, 103.1 FM. Do you have any plans maybe to do a solo project at any time? I mean, or is that just going to be outside of your comfort zone?
Great question. I have a very small solo project that mostly is related to performance. I love having the ability to perform, especially when I travel, and it's not all 5 of us and the infrastructure of the whole Rising Appalachia team. It's just called Leah Song, the Leah Song Project. But I have no big drive to turn that into an entity. I don't have a lot of desire to do a ton of recording, and I don't have a ton of need to fill a tour schedule. So it's continued for a while now to just live in this wonderful place that is, it can be a bit more improvisational. I can put together shows very quickly, just if I arrive in town and there's a cool tea house or something like this. And so the idea of kind of pushing it into a more professional place at the moment feels unappealing. I like that it's a bit rogue. And we're very, very busy. Rising Appalachia is pretty full time, and Starling Arrow, like you mentioned at the introduction, has a full time studio recording put together, and currently I'm managing the project. So we have our hands full. I'm going to retire and be a potter or something.
Well, it's kind of interesting with Rising Appalachia. You and Chloe you harmonize beautifully together, but you stand alone as separate entities within Rising Appalachia as well. And so it's almost like two solo careers put together on the same stage happening in a way as well. So a little bit of both.
Yeah.
You're listening to Art on the Air with our guest today, singer-songwriter Leah Song, on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, and on WVLP, 103.1 FM. Well, we have a few minutes left, but we still want to squeeze in one song, Resilient. Tell us a little bit about that. You said that would be the...
Clincher.
Yeah, it would. So tell us a little bit about that and everything. We'll come back and talk just a little bit more.
Well, this is a Chloe masterpiece. And I'm so happy to wax poetic about her brilliant songwriting. I think this is the most powerful song that she's written. And she did write this quickly. She wrote it in a moment of immense pressure, struggle, heartbreak, right at the back end of a trip that we had taken to Standing Rock in this tumult of a big tour. And I think she just felt explosive. And it came that way. It came through that way. And she said, Leah, I think I wrote a really good song. And,
yeah, you know it.
And, and it just, I think it came to her as a crystallized piece. And we have now recorded we have 4 different versions of it recorded. We have our original duo version. We have a beautiful full band rendition that has a much more instrumental piece of it. Our cello player, Duncan Wickel, rearranged it and made it a waltz rhythm and led
Beautiful.
It on cello. We have a version from the Prez Hall live stream concert, and then we have a remixed version of it as well. And so it continues to live. People write us and say, oh, our choir learned this song, and they send us versions from middle school classes. And I think it's the one we get the most inquiry about. And I think it's because it holds that spark. It holds in it the spark of creativity as this, tool to deal with grief, to deal with rage, to process, and try and figure out a way to step up. And so I'm so honored to sing it night after night after night, and I'm so glad that its life is so vibrant out there.
Well, let's take a listen to Resilient. Chloe Smith wrote it, and Leah Song. Here it is.
I am resilient. I trust the movement. I negate the chaos, uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again. I'll close my mouth and learn to listen. Whoa, 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 whoa. These times are poignant, the winds have shifted. It's all we can do to stay uplifted. Pipelines through backyards, wolves howling out front. Yeah, I got my crew, but truth is what I want. Realigned and on point, power to the peaceful, prayers to the waters, women at the center, all vessels open to give and receive. Let's see the system brought down to its knees. Whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, 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 whoa, oh, oh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. made of dirt, yeah, made of the fine things. My father taught me that I'm a speck of dust and this world was made for me. So let's go and try our luck. Said I've got my roots down, 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 down deep. I've got my roots down, 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 down deep. So what are we doing here? What has been done? What are you gonna do about it when the world comes undone? My voice feels tiny and I'm sure so does yours. Put us all together, make a mighty negate the chaos, uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again. I'll close my mouth and learn to listen.
And that was Resilient, Rising Appalachia, Leah Song, and Chloe Smith. You know, we only have about 1 minute left, too.
I know. I'm so glad you explained this song because I can hear the heartache and I'll show up at the table again and again and again and again. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Leah, we have just a little bit of time for you to tell us, well, upcoming projects, how people can find your music, maybe get in touch with you to maybe even perform for them.
Yeah, well, if you can spell Appalachia, you can find us, risingappalachia.com. All of the socials, we're Rising Appalachia or Rising Appalachia Music, basically anywhere you look. And we do have a big tour, our biggest tour since before the pandemic. We'll start in Seattle and we'll weave our way all the way down to LA and Joshua Tree. We have our first international show in Mexico in April of 2024. So we're really excited about making our way to our southern neighbors. We have some new music coming. We have a beautiful show with Starling Arrow in that tour, our West Coast CD release. So you can find all that at starlingarrow.com. And we're all Luddites, so we're terrible at social media, but we do our very best to keep everybody posted and updated on what's happening. We have a Patreon and we have a newsletter as well. So dig in and find the way that works best for you. And it's a real big pleasure, and we're a tad nervous, but we're excited to be out in the world making our craft again.
Well, we appreciate you coming on Art in the Air. That's Leah Song, and of course her sister also sings along with her, Chloe Smith, the Rising Appalachia, and we appreciate you coming on and sharing your musical journey.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
of guests this week on Art on the Air, our weekly program covering the arts and arts events throughout Northwest Indiana and beyond. Art on the Air is heard Sunday at 7 p.m. on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, also streaming live at lakeshorepublicmedia.org, and is available on Lakeshore Public Media's website as a podcast. Art on the Air is also heard Friday at 11 a.m. and Monday at 5 p.m. on WVLP 103.1 FM, streaming live at wvlp.org. Our Spotlight interviews are heard every Wednesday on Lakeshore Public Media. Thanks to Tom Maloney, Vice President of Radio Operation for Lakeshore Public Media, and Greg Kovach, WVLP's station manager. Our theme music is by Billy Foster with a vocal by Renee Foster. Art on the Air is supported by an Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project Grant, South Shore Arts, and the National Endowment for the Arts. We'd like to thank our current underwriters for Lakeshore Public Media, Macaulay Real Estate in Valparaiso, Olga Patrician, Senior Broker. And for WVLP, Walt Breidinger of Paragon Investments. So we may continue to bring you Art in the Air. We rely on you, our listeners and underwriters, for ongoing financial support. If you're looking to support Art on the Air, we have information on our website at breck.com/AOTA, where you can find out how to become a supporter or underwriter of our program in whatever amount you are able. And like I say every week, don't give till it hurts. Give till it feels good. You'll feel so good about supporting Art on the Air. If you're interested in being a guest or send us information about your arts-related event or exhibit, please email us at aota@breck.com. That's aota@breck.com, or contact us through our Facebook page. Your hosts were Larry Breckner and Esther Golden, and we invite you back next week for another episode of Art on the Air.
Aloha, everyone. Have a splendid week.
Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. You're in the know with Esther and Larry. Art on the Air today. Stay in the know with Larry and Esther. Art on the Air our way. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world